Good morning. My name is Kevin Lee. You all know me. I'm the principal investigator of Antiques, and I'm very glad to be, part of this event and important part of this event. I want to give you a few information about the second day. So we have two very exciting keynotes that are going to be coming in the morning, and then we have some breakouts in the rooms downstairs. There has been a cancellation, and very unfortunate cancellation. Sam Bowen, who is, a person that many of us know and wanted to listen to, had some accident yesterday. We were not able to present. So I hope you all had a nice evening yesterday. The weather is very clement and very favorable for us today. The first keynote is our partner, Gordon, who is Gordon Snyder, who is the principal investigator and the executive director of ICT Center. Doesn't need any presentation, and starts talking on the digital device, so we start with more Gordon.
Hi, everybody hear me okay? Great. Let me start my timer. I'll go over here. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the digital divide and some of the things that are going on. This is a map of New England, and this is actually a wireline broadband coverage map. You can see it. It's a little hard to see. I think you can see Massachusetts, a little look of Cape Cod. You look to the right, sort of 3/4 of the way around to the left, that's where Springfield is. It's Springfield, Massachusetts. That's where our national center is located. But this is a pretty interesting map. This is wireline broadband coverage. Everywhere you see white, there is no broadband access, no broadband availability. You get up into the northern states, Maine, Vermont, New Hampshire, very, very little when you get away from the metropolitan areas. That's wireline. That's cable modem, DSL, and Fios, Verizon Fios, where it's available. Here's wireless coverage. This is 3G coverage right now in New England. And there's a lot more blue. There's a lot more solid blue if you look at it. And I've got the two maps compared here, actually. You can see here on the left is wireline, on the right is wireless. So we're kind of closing the gap with availability anyway. And this wireless is 3G. This 4G, as the 4G stuff rolls out, LTE, you'll see because of the ability to extend go longer distances with LTE services, you'll see those white spots on the wireless map fill in with those more blue too. So it's pretty good coverage in most of the populated areas with wireless, and that's not necessarily the case in New England and many other parts of the United States. I think if I were to pop up a map of California, you'd see something very similar in this part of the country, and that goes for just about everywhere. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So we want to talk about mobile and wireless and where this stuff is going and how our students are going to use it. Now, this is my generation's definition of course. Our kids, our current students grew up a certain way. I've got a little video here. I want to see if anybody recognizes who the person is in this video. Anybody like that? Yeah, you find it very easy to use?
Yeah, so I learned about it.
Very good.
Can I please follow the button?
Yeah, how do you use Windows 95?
Wait.
Anybody want to go through that? This was in 1994, I think Gabby was 3 years old. But anyway, here's today's generation. You've probably seen this before. Mike Casani actually gets the credit for this video. He's going to bring you this video. It's amazing how intuitive these things are. You know, watching Gabby, 17, 18 years ago now, use something before she could read it. We're seeing the same thing now with these tablet devices. You don't need manuals anymore. Again, it's pretty interesting. If you look at what a lot of the kids are saying, the iPad and mobile in general, I guess, only does less than a regular computer to us geeks. To everyone else, it does more. So we're seeing, again, this shift, this transition. Some history, maybe some of you remember these things. There's some people old enough. This is a little before my time. But mainframe computers, I'm figuring this is probably shot around the 1950s, the equipment and the clothing. 1 million units sold in the first 10 years. If we look at mini computer, this is the DEC PDP-8, old Massachusetts company that really did anymore. Mini computer, 10 million units sold in the first 10 years. PC is one of the first Apple ones in the Smithsonian, 100 million units sold in the first 10 years. Desktop internet, 1 million plus users in the first 10 years. And mobile internet, 10 plus billion units sold in the first 10 years. So we really, there's so much of this stuff out there. We need to start looking at using this stuff to deliver content to our students, because most of our students are carrying these things around. So a little bit more about today. If you look at U.S. high schools, and this is from a Project Tomorrow organization, along with Blackboard, they commissioned this report. 98% of our students, high school students, have access to some kind of smartphone. And that's pretty significant. The United Nations says there's 5.3 billion mobile phone subscriptions worldwide at the end of 2010. So 90% of the world population has access to a mobile network right now. And if you look at that, only about 2 billion people have wired internet access right now in the world. As far as text messaging goes, I don't know how many of you have kids that text message. It's amazing. If you look at 1,615 texts per month, ages 18 to 24. You get the teen years, between 13 and 18, it's double, over 3,000 per month. So it's times maybe 3,000 per day. What's going on, right? It's just amazing. It's incredible. And text messaging is very, very interesting. SMS was designed to work with feature phones, not smartphones. It was designed to run on a voice network. And if you use an iChat right now, anybody have an iPhone or an iPad or a touch, you use an iChat, you notice some of the messages come across blue and some green as you're sending messages. If messages show up blue, they're not going across. They're not SMS. They're going across an IP network. Verizon about 40% of the profit for Verizon Wireless, the mobile side of the company, is SMS. It's all going to go away really fast, especially as we convert to LTE. As we move to LTE, everything is IP-based. There's no longer separate voice. There's equivalent of PSTN, public switch telephone network for voice calls. That's the way 3G works. Everything's IP-based with LTE and WiMAX also. So that's all going to go away. It's an interesting time. I think that's why you saw Verizon try to put that little $2 charge in. Was that a couple of weeks ago? Everybody bought that and they took away. But again, back to texting, 6.1 trillion text messages in 2010. It's an interesting, again, incredible market. 16.7 billion messages per day. If you do some math, it's 2.5 messages for every live person on the planet per day. Again, just incredible numbers. If you look at growth of sales, PC sales, it's flat, 2.7%. It's been flat for over 5 years now. That's the growth rate. If you look at smartphones, it's about 87.2%. Again, that's over the last 3 years that number comes from. So you can see the trend, you can see where it's going. And I think you can bunch out mobile devices like iPads and those kinds of things in with that smartphone growth. Morgan Stanley said in June 2010 that smartphone units sold would surpass PC units in 2012. That actually happened in the fourth quarter of 2010. So it's been a while. Over 85% of all the handsets sold in the world right now have some sort of a web browser on it. So there's some kind of smartphone. You hear people talk about smartphones, people talk about feature phones. Feature phones are not smartphones. They're voice phones, I guess, with some enhanced features. A couple months ago, more Americans with smartphones than feature phones. This happened in September last year. So that's it. It's sort of it's a done deal. You can see where it's all going. More than half the time, this is from Morgan Stanley again, a phone is used as a phone. Only 45% of the time, a smartphone is used for voice. It's used for lots of other stuff, email, internet, music, games, text messaging. So, as far as video goes, video currently half of all mobile data traffic, and they're saying that's going to grow to around 70% in 4 years. It's probably going to grow a lot more. So again, it's significant numbers. The shift to mobile, it's already happened. As far as Blue Dot Technologies policies and approaches, this is just an interesting quote here from Hamilton Chan at Paperlinks. We no longer need to be tethered to a desktop computer where we use the internet to interact with the world around us. So we're getting off a matchable. If you look at social networking, things like Facebook and Twitter, just a couple examples. Time spent globally surpassed email in 2007, way back in 2007. And social networking users surpassed email users in 2009. You realize this? And I look at these numbers, I didn't realize this. Otherwise, I read things, I had to read it twice. Much more popular now. I don't know if you I noticed if I need to get in touch with somebody quick, I'll message them on Facebook. I can get a response usually a lot quicker than sending them an email. Facebook right now has more than 350 million mobile users, and there's over 800 million total users for Facebook right now. So it's approaching pretty close to half. And if you look at those 350 million users, mobile users, well, first of all, it's up 100 million since last year. And each of those 350 million mobile users creates twice the daily activity of desktop users. Because that's going with them all the time, so constantly posting and doing stuff with it. And about 28 million people, I think this number is actually a little low, are using the mobile web exclusively. They're not using any kind of other other a desktop or notebook kind of device. Mike, this is one of Mike's blogs, a screenshot of one of Mike's finance blogs. People are looking at using Facebook as an LMS, which I think is a pretty interesting and pretty good idea. And it's something to experiment with a little bit. If everybody's there, it makes sense maybe to try to use it. If all your students are there, it makes sense to try to use it in the way that you can take advantage. Twitter, Fast Company's #2 most innovative company for 2011. I guess they're moving just down the road here, right? They're in San Francisco right now, and they're convinced to stay in San Francisco. We're in Twitter country right here. Anybody want to guess who's the #1 company? Not you. No, nobody was. Somebody was Apple. Yeah, Apple. Yeah. So, again, another emerging company. Mobile Twitter usage is up 347% from a couple of years ago. Over 40% of all tweets now come from mobile users. So again, the mobile shift is on. We're seeing Twitter used. People start to experiment a little bit with Twitter in the classroom. I don't know if anybody here has. I've experimented a little bit with it in my classes with some of my Verizon students. I teach a course with Verizon employees, and I've tried doing some of these kinds of things where I'll ask a question in class, and I've got a sort of a back channel running on a screen like this, and students will respond in different ways. So either answer questions or they'll ask. If I pose a question, they'll answer questions, or if I ask a question, or if they have a question, they'll pose a question, and we can work that way. So it's interesting. I think there's some good uses of things like Twitter in the classroom also. As far as reading goes, there's a bunch of different apps right now that allow you to go back and basically save content on the device and read it later. Read it later is one of them, actually. And you're seeing a time shift. You're seeing this is a little time graph of when people are saving articles. So they're saving them during the day, like a lot of during the traditional work time, maybe up till around 9 or 10 o'clock at night. But they're actually reading. They may be saving content during the day while they're working. This is pretty interesting. They're actually reading it when they're reading it. Maybe they're reading it on their commute home on a train or a bus or maybe a carpool, or maybe when they get home they're sitting down and having dinner and reading some content. So saving and reading, this whole time shifting, idea of time shifting and reading it later is becoming the trend. Instapaper is another one that allows you to save content from different devices and then read it on multiple devices later. Kindles, iPhones, computers, any connected device. Flipboard is another one. Flipboard is probably one of the more popular ones. Anybody using Flipboard? Flipboard's pretty neat. It's a great way to keep track of all your social media. Things like Facebook and Twitter. And this whole idea of passive personalization, and this is a screenshot of highlighted some things, something in the Kindle app, and then posted it up on Facebook. But this whole idea of passive personalization, you like something, I'm friends with you, chances are there's a much larger chance that I'm going to try something that you like, that you recommend, because we're friends and I trust your judgment and your opinion. So the whole Facebook model is on this. Everything's in the cloud right now. This is a picture of one of my daughter's friends, not Gabby, my younger daughter's friends from Germany. We've got a Massachusetts Green High Performance Computing Center going in the western part of the state, next town over from us. 70% of it's going to run on water power from the Connecticut River. It's a collaborative project with a bunch of different, maybe University of Massachusetts, MIT, Harvard, Northeastern, Boston University, and UMass Amherst. Our center's been pretty involved in that. And so we're going to take an old mill, an old paper mill, basically, that used to run on water power and turn it into a high-performance computing center. The whole mobile learning thing, I think you've all taken a look at some of these kinds of things. iTunes University, the Stanford iPhone service is probably one of the more popular ones you may look at. There's all kinds of basic skills and test prep stuff out there for your students. Lots of math stuff, lots of good math stuff. This is interesting.
I've been teaching math for the last 5 years, and this is why I flipped my classroom. This is what my classroom used to look like. I was teaching to the middle group of the class. The students, they could follow along with what we were doing, and we were going through the content. While I had a group of higher level students, not challenged, bored with the information, ready to move forward. And I had a struggling group of students that were not receiving enough effective remediation. They didn't have the basic content they needed to be working on the content we were currently covering, or they needed more help in order to be successful. This led to a 90% use of class time being spent on delivery and review of content. 90% of the time I was at the front of the classroom, lecturing to a group of students, and I wasn't meeting all of their needs. 10% of class time was actually spent on application, which led to, depending on students, to do the application needed to be successful. They had to go home or outside of class and work on applying the concepts that I was giving out in class. This constant battle of not reaching the needs of all students and feeling the need to differentiate for all my learners allowed teachers to feel overwhelmed and ineffective because we see the need for differentiation, but there's just not enough time for effective differentiation. This calls for a drastic change in how we teach. This is where flipping the classroom comes in. Now when students outside of class preload the content, they get the information they're going to need for class. They can pause, rewind, and rewatch the videos as many times as they need to. They can post questions online to their classmates or to the teacher. And it's a self-paced program where they can be remediated by going back and reviewing former topics, or they can work ahead when they've already mastered the concepts and are ready to look forward. They get the content here before class, so that when they come into class, my whole classroom has now shifted, where I'm at the center of the class, working between these differentiated groups, focused on different pieces of application. I can now work between each of these groups that are moving at their own pace. This has created a 90% use of class time spent on application of the content, and 10% of class time is spent on delivery of content, when I can answer questions that have been posted or take any other questions that have come up from applying the content. Now in my classroom, all students are engaged and challenged. I have time to work with each group, give them individualized time and instruction as they need, and I can actually work between each of the groups to provide effective differentiation for all my varied groups of learners. My struggling students, my middle group of learners, and I can now extend and expand on my higher level students, prior knowledge, and challenge them in the classroom. To learn more about flipping the classroom, visit the Friday Institute's website.
As said, North Carolina State, it's pretty interesting. They're using a lot of the Khan Academy stuff, a lot of the Khan Academy videos that allow you to do this. Basically, the students end up consuming the lecture material at home. They come in, and they do a little of homework in class. That's the idea of flipping the classroom. And again, it's pretty interesting stuff. And it's very easy to do at home. As far as textbooks go, this is kind of quick here. There's a big publisher. I don't want to mention the publisher's name, but I don't know if they're still here. They were here yesterday. So we've been working on a project where they've got all kinds of content. They've got references, they've got ebooks, they've got all kinds of database material and access, and they're evolving from a print model right now to what they're calling digital collections, to online databases, to portal products. We're seeing this shift in classroom content. And they're in a process now of curating and refereeing all the content they have. I think they got about, over 15 million articles pieces of audio, video, that they're in the process of tagging and organizing and putting into a database. And they're creating these portals that are sort of built and framed around the actual book content. So maybe you take a paragraph out of a textbook that references certain topics, like I'll pick wireless communications, for example. So they've got all this other content that they're going to build around the book content. We're seeing this transition. We're seeing this digital curriculum initiative, this big initiative in Texas right now. It's probably the biggest one, I think, in the country at this point, where this shift is happening. It's moved to these e-books. I don't know if you call them e-books. I think you probably call them enhanced. There's sort of a combination of a book and web content, voice, video, audio. So it's pretty interesting to see the shift going on. And then there's the whole idea of applications. Can an app on a mobile device or a desktop computer be a book, or maybe it's part of a book? Maybe a book can be an app in some way, or made into an app in some way. The whole idea of gaming, network gaming, is huge. Over the next 3 to 5 years, this is an economist, Casanova. 3 to 5 years would be the effort to embed dynamics of network gaming into everyday life, and we've seen that now. And James made reference yesterday to Call of War and what's going on with that. It's just incredible. So I'm gonna finish up here in the last couple minutes talking a little bit about positive experience in the classroom. As you're putting this content together, maybe you're creating audio, video content, maybe you're trying to create multimedia, get it on mobile devices. There's I think 3 behavioral trends, and this comes out of some marketing stuff I found, and I referenced it at the end of the presentation here. They talk about convenience, context, and fun. You talk to marketing people. And as far as convenience goes, less is more, so you want to try to simplify. If you're creating content, multimedia content, you want to keep it relatively short. Chunk it up, maybe at the most 20-minute chunks. I would recommend probably 12 to 15 minutes is a little better. So chunk it up in some way. In many cases, the best device is the one you always have with you, or that comment probably with regards to the camera, the best camera is the camera you always have with you. So you want to create content to be consumed on devices that your students always have with them. And for 98% of them are around there, it's some kind of a phone, some kind of mobile device. And you want to offer some tangible value. As far as context goes, as the circumstances that form the setting for an event, you want to give them relevant content when they need it. You want to make it easy for them to access it, pick and choose, move back and forth, as the woman from Friday students say. And you want to help them find the information they need in real time. And the third thing is fun. Those 2 videos we saw at the beginning, those 2 kids were having fun. So sometimes we tend to forget that. We all still like to have fun even when we're grown up. So it's easiest to look at marketing. Again, this is a marketing statement. Fun is the easiest way to change people's behaviors. Make your classes a little fun by using some of these technologies that they can make it better results. So there's a summary. And this is a great quote. This is from Marissa Meyer, head of mobile geolocation at Google. Mobile phone acts as a cursor to connect the digital and the physical. I think I got like 1 minute for any questions if anybody has any. If not, we can switch over. Yes.
How do you get people to read the chapter before the lecture?
Make it fun. It's not so much reading, it's audio, and video content. I find myself, I'm not a real big, I don't have a lot of time to read, but I do have commute time, so I listen to things in the car. That's how I do a lot of my learning now. Listen to podcasts and audio while I'm driving back. Thank you.